Good afternoon, folks, and thank you for joining me today. I am Red Pill 78, the corruption detector, and this is your Red Pill News Brief. All right, today we have a single story. The reason it's on its own is because it's very, very important. From the Gateway Pundit, former law enforcement official says Benghazi cover-up was to protect the Clinton Foundation. General Flynn was attacked because he knew too much. There she is. A former law enforcement officer named Roscoe B Davis unveiled a number of tweets over the weekend tying the attack in Benghazi to the Clinton Foundation. The foundation reportedly made millions gun running, and General Flynn was allegedly attacked because he knew too much. The tweets are as follows and start with information about the Taliban having U.S. Stinger missiles. Roscoe said, "Some people have shown interest once again in Benghazi. To me, this tragedy is still very important. I'm not talking about Susan Rice hitting the Sunday morning circuit, lying about the attack. However, it is important. But all these things leading up to Benghazi and why they were..." On July 25, 2012, Taliban fighters in Kunar province, Afghanistan, successfully targeted a U.S. Army CH-47 helicopter with a new generation Stinger missile. The terrorists didn't properly arm the missile, so it didn't explode. It only downed the chopper. The Taliban had obtained the Stinger missiles that Hillary and McCain had hoped to go to Libya. The next day, an EOD team arrived to pick through the wreckage and found unexploded pieces of a missile casing that could only belong to a new generation Stinger missile, lodged in the right nacelle. They found one fragment that contained an entire serial number. The Stinger tracked back to a lot that had been signed out by the CIA, part of the same lot that the CIA turned over to the Qataris in early 2011. Weapons Hillary Clinton's State Department intended for anti-Gaddafi forces in Libya through a contact of John McCain named Mark Turi. McCain's contact by the name of Mark Turi sold billions to the U.S. in weapons and was involved in the Obama plan to give guns to al-Qaeda to get them to overthrow Gaddafi. Turi threatened to spill the beans when the CIA started coming after him and wanting answers, and they framed him up on a bogus weapons charge and tried to ruin him. People are asking, who is Mark Turi? Well, let's meet Mark Turi.
I'm Catherine Herridge on Capitol Hill. It's been nearly 3 years since Ambassador Chris Stevens, Foreign Service Officer Sean Smith, and former Navy SEALs Ty Woods and Glenn Doherty were murdered in Benghazi, Libya. And even today, congressional investigators doubt they have all of the emails from Mrs. Clinton's server when she was Secretary of State. In this Fox Files investigation, new details are emerging about what President Obama's team and members of Congress knew about weapons pouring into the region during the chaotic Arab Spring in 2011.
Well, this would come under Secretary Clinton's watch.
American arms dealer Mark Turi is at the center of a federal investigation involving Libya, Syria, and Turkey. Turi is president of the Turi Defense Group, a company that for decades has been licensed and regulated by the State Department to sell and move tons of weapons around the world. He spoke exclusively to Fox News.
If a certain country is brokering various types of equipment, we try to get involved. Primarily weapons and ammunition, transportation, logistics, government liaison.
Turi says he is haunted by what he thinks happened when there was a failure to oversee who got the weapons pouring into Syria, Libya, and elsewhere in the Middle East during the Arab Spring. Officially, those who receive or use weapons following U.S. policy are referred to as end users. In 2011, Turi pursued Libya as a business opportunity as dictator Muammar Gaddafi's regime was falling apart.
Mark Turi is from Phoenix, Arizona, and was a neighbor of John McCain. McCain, who has been on the Senate Arms Committee for years, helped Turi secure billions in arms contracts with the DoD. Then Clinton and McCain came up with a plan to arm al-Qaeda to get them to overthrow Gaddafi. Charges against Turi were dropped in Obama's last days in office. He knew the U.S. was running the arms through Libya, but the CIA surprisingly was not supportive of this. Things got out of hand and went south quickly. Don't know what ace in the hole Mark Turi that kept him alive, but it must be good. Because in Obama's last days in office, they dropped all charges on Turi, and he walked on all charges.
If you had a properly allocated supply chain where you had everything under control, you would have had our personnel receiving that equipment, on the ground in Libya and then taking it back to a warehouse under our control and then giving it to vetted sources. If they would have followed that procedure, maybe Ambassador Stevens and Sean Smith and Ty Woods or Glenn Doherty would be alive today.
Turi shared emails from 2011. The traffic indicates that high-level Democratic, Republican intelligence and military contacts, both inside and outside of government, encouraged him to explore options for arming the Libyan opposition.
Yes, I kept getting information from my associates that are liaising with members of Congress and saying, there's still interest. Keep going.
We asked Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano to review some of the email traffic between Turi and members of Congress.
Well, unless Mr. Turi concocted these emails, which would be nearly impossible, he has presented sound, documentary, irrefutable evidence to show that this was a covert operation, a grand conspiracy, if you will. One thinks and one wonders when one sees the constellation of political superstars who signed off.
It's nothing new for us to arm bad guys. It's been done many times, just ask Ollie North. But it's usually a CIA effort, but they opposed the idea from the very beginning because of the high risk involved in arming insurgents with powerful weapons that endanger civilian aircraft. Now, I don't know how much I buy into this because I have seen the CIA arm insurgents previously, and they didn't seem to have any issues with it. Hillary was the one who was for the arms sales to Libya, and she was out to make millions on the deal. But I definitely believe that. Roscoe continues, but HRC had a big payday coming and could care less. She never flew commercial anyway. Clinton still wanted to proceed because she wanted to overthrow Gaddafi on the cheap.
And you get back to the emails, that members of Congress absolutely knew about it.
Turi's initial application to sell weapons directly to the Libyan opposition, known as the TNC, was denied.
It made perfect and very clear sense because the TNC was not a recognized entity in the world, which means they could never have signed an end-user statement. So the only person or organization or entity I could deal with was the U.S. government.
This sworn affidavit, released in May 2015 and obtained by Fox News, indicates a covert weapons operation was authorized. Turi's partner and advisor was this man, David Manners. During his 18-year career at the CIA, he served as the top spy in Jordan and in the former Czechoslovakia. Manners stated in his expert opinion, the United States did participate directly or indirectly in the supply of weapons to the Libyan Transitional National Council.
That's where I came up with this zero footprint Arab supply chain, whereby our foreign ally supplies another Arab country.
Turi says it was a workaround because at the time the U.S. had not officially recognized the rebels under the TNC.
Those containers in Qatar that were diverted on the docks from Turi's shipment delivered between 50 and 60 of those same stingers to the Taliban in early 2012, and an additional 200 SA-24 Igla-S SAMs. Hillary put Stevens in Benghazi to clean up her mess after it was discovered that al-Qaeda terrorists were obtaining the U.S. arms. When he was murdered, Hillary and Obama had to create a cover-up story. Now HRC put Stevens in the position of having to clean up the scandalous enterprise when it became clear that the insurgents actually were al-Qaeda, the same group that attacked the consulate and ended up killing Stevens, Sean Smith, and CIA contractors Tyrone Woods and Glenn Doherty.
My idea was to set up a warehouse where the only person that could take that equipment out, or the only entity that could take that equipment out of Qatar or UAE, was the U.S. government.
As part of the workaround, the U.S. would supply conventional weapons to another U.S. ally, Qatar.
There's a 60 millimeter mortar with optics, 120 millimeter mortar, all conventional type weapons. If you want to limit the exposure to the U.S. government, what you simply do is outsource it to your allies. The partners, the Qataris and the Emiratis, did exactly what they were contracted to do.
During Hillary Clinton's term as Secretary of State, U.S. arms dealers were awarded a record number of export licenses to sell sophisticated weapons, military parts, and technology internationally. Selena Realu is a professor of national security at the Pkwy Center at the National Defense University.
That's actually been a huge policy position of the Obama administration, was to actually overall to improve U.S. exports overseas.
In 2011, more than 86,000 licenses with a value of $44.3 billion were granted, a surge of more than $10 billion from the previous year.
If you would like to engage in arms sales and you're a U.S. manufacturer, you actually seek license and apply for an export license with the State Department.
Immediately, HRC tried to use the cover story on why they were attacked, then fell flat on its face. Susan Rice hit the Sunday shows with a spontaneous protest because of a video story, and that blew up in their faces. The story in Benghazi was why Stevens was even there. Most people ignored the Benghazi hearings, thinking it was all about the lying on whether or not the attack originated about a video. That's all the mainstream media wanted to talk about. No, it was about why in the hell was Stevens in Benghazi in the first place.
Andrew Shapiro served as the Assistant Secretary for the Bureau of Political Military Affairs under Secretary Clinton. That role is actually responsible for overseeing this entire export control process at the State Department.
March 2011 was a busy time for Hillary Clinton and her team, which included Andrew Shapiro and senior advisor Huma Abedin. On the 14th, along with Chris Stevens, then serving as the embassy's deputy chief of mission in Libya, Clinton met with Mustafa Jibril, a senior member of the TNC. The next day, Clinton met with Egypt's transitional leader, Nabil el-Arabi, in Cairo, and walked through Tahrir Square with Abedin. At the same time, government documents showed that Turi's proposal, a $267 million contract, was working its way through official channels.
My application was submitted on the 12th. These brokers then, through their relationship with the TNC, then provided that application information to Ms. Clinton via the TNC counsel when she was in Cairo. That's what was told to me, and an email.
Turi also showed Fox emails from April 6th and 7th, 2011, that he exchanged with Chris Stevens' personal email account, alerting him to his application to sell weapons. Stevens replied with a thank you, and I'll keep it in mind and share it with my colleagues in Washington.
He is the point guy now.
Coming up, what does this recently released email from Secretary Clinton tell us about her secret strategy to arm the rebels in Libya?
What's the desperate need to send him into a hostile, unstable situation diplomacy? In Benghazi, we had no boots on the ground there, only CIA contractors monitoring the situation. Stevens showing up to set up a makeshift embassy in a virtually non-secure facility. For what? Stevens was in Benghazi allegedly working for the Clinton Foundation. To spread the voice of freedom and goodwill? BS. WikiLeaks blew the lid off it and people started connecting the dots. HRC was neck deep in illegal arms dealing to our enemies, fast and furious on an international scale. McCain and HRC were scapegoating Turi to cover their tracks.
In early April 2011, arms dealer Mark Turi was exchanging emails with Chris Stevens. On April 8, 2011, this heavily redacted email, recently released to the Benghazi Committee, shows Secretary Clinton was interested in arming the rebels using contractors. FYI, the idea of using private security experts to arm the opposition should be considered, she wrote. The following month, Turi received this preliminary approval letter from the State Department for his $267 million arms proposal for Qatar. In July, his Arizona home was raided by federal agents.
They came in with full body armor and weapons, and they take my computers and my cell phones, and they've been chasing me all over the world for the past 3 years, speaking to associates of mine all over the United States and looking into my records and my past.
Now Turi is facing trial set for this September on 2 counts that he allegedly violated the Arms Export Control Act by making false statements.
Chris Stevens became the official U.S. liaison to the Libyan opposition. He first entered Benghazi on April 5, 2011, joined by a USAID team. USAID team? How about some damn Marines? Who was neck deep in USAID and are still to this day? the Clinton Foundation. The U.S. was attacked in Benghazi, which was bad because Hillary wanted to keep the operation there low-key. In the 13-hour standoff in Benghazi, multiple stand-down orders from HRC, response teams changing in and out of uniforms multiple times. U.S. Security Officer Eric Nordstrom twice requested additional security for the mission in Benghazi from the State Department, but requests were denied. State Department official Charlene Lamb said she wanted to keep the security presence in Benghazi artificially low to not draw attention to why they were really there. Surplus funds originally earmarked for use in Iran were redirected and obligated for use in Benghazi to buy stingers. Here's a picture of the complex. Americans knew from the beginning it was a terrorist attack because it was. U.S. Army Commando Unit was sent to Naval Station Sigonella in Sicily, Italy, the night of the attack, but did not deploy to Benghazi. State Department claimed the team did not arrive at Sigonella until after the attack was over. Only later did we find out that this was a lie, too. Diplomatic Security Service agents, regional security officers informed their headquarters in D.C. about the attack just as it was about to begin at about 9:40 p.m. local time, 3:40 Eastern time. At the time, they were informed that the attack was a terrorist attack. It took the FBI 23 days to get to Benghazi and investigate. By 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Pentagon officials had informed Leon Panetta about the attack. The Pentagon ordered a drone that was in the air conducting surveillance on military camps to fly over Benghazi. So instead of sending commandos, they sent a drone with a camera.
His attorney Jean-Jacques Cabot told Fox in emails that his client had a track record working for the U.S. government through the Central Intelligence Agency, and the government's case is an epic fishing expedition, and his client neither lied on any application nor did he do anything other than support U.S. foreign policy and interests in the Middle East. In his youth, Turi made some mistakes, and Fox confirmed he served time in an Arizona jail. Nonetheless, since the 1990s, Turi's company met the strict State Department criteria to sell and move weapons around the world in support of U.S. operations. Turi insists he never shipped any weapons to Qatar, and others stole the zero footprint idea.
Why isn't the State Department contacting me about making a mistake on my application? The State Department had a lead on this. They were going to run it with their people. And who that is, I have no idea. I sat back and watched this unravel, and it went south really quick.
Turi says he heard disturbing reports from his contacts on the ground in Libya about weapons arriving from Qatar and falling into the wrong hands.
After a 13-hour standoff, why did it take 23 days to allow the FBI investigators in to gather forensics? What were they hiding at the State Department? Where were all the official communications? The emails, better yet, where are the stingers and the balance of SA-24s? Hillary tried to tie the attack to Turi, but WikiLeaks released emails, which we wrote about at the Gateway Pundit at the time, showing Hillary's plans and ties to al-Qaeda. Knowing their cover is blown, the State Department went after Turi, pointing fingers at him, trying to frame him for supplying the Taliban with weapons illegally. But WikiLeaks emails revealed communications where HRC was seeking small 10-container unmarked vessels to move the sea cans.
When this equipment landed in Libya, half went one way and the half went the other way. The half that went the other way is the half that ended up in Syria.
This Defense Intelligence Agency report, recently obtained by a Judicial Watch lawsuit, provides further confirmation weapons were flowing unchecked in the weeks leading up to the 2012 attack. Quote, weapons from the former Libya military stockpiles were shipped from the port of Benghazi, Libya, to the port of Banais and the port of Borj Islam, Syria. Fox News has reported extensively about the shipment of weapons, including man-pads aboard the Libyan ship Al Antasar to Turkey 5 days before the Benghazi assault.
Here's 1,651 emails in this sort that connect Clinton to al-Qaeda and ISIS in both Libya and Syria, demonstrating Clinton supplied weapons to ISIS via Syria. Right there. You guys will be able to find this in the pinned comment below. Hillary then lied in front of Congress about the guns running in Benghazi. Documents made public by Judicial Watch and separately by WikiLeaks' Julian Assange back up Turkish President Erdogan's assertion that U.S.-led coalition forces have given support to terror groups, including ISIS, in Syria. When HRC is called before Congress and asked directly, she lies. General Flynn knew the truth behind the entire situation. A Defense Department doc from the Defense Intelligence Agency dated 9/12/2012, the day after the Benghazi attack, details that the attack on the compound had been carefully planned by the Bokhar terrorist group to kill as many Americans as possible. Pay attention, folks. Who was the director of the DIA at the time Benghazi went down, and who was warning HRC and the State Department and Leon Panetta that an attack was planned? General Flynn. And now you know why they were so desperate to get Flynn out of the seat of National Security Advisor. He knew the truth. Obama got rid of General Flynn and even discouraged President-elect Trump not to hire General Flynn. He knew too much. The document was sent to then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, then Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta, then Joint Chiefs of Staff in the Obama White House National Security Council. Flynn knew where all the bodies were buried. It's the reason Obama had to get rid of Flynn. Barry also warned real Donald Trump not to hire Flynn. Reason being, General Flynn knew all the dirty secrets of all the illegal arms dealing the Obama administration was doing in the Middle East. As National Security Advisor, he could sink them under the prison. Hillary didn't care about any deaths or guns to American enemies. She was making millions on the deal. It's time that Hillary and Obama are brought to justice. If President Trump does not bring to justice the people in the deep state responsible for selling guns to our enemies and lying about it and the fate of our 4 Americans, he will have a difficult time being reelected. Americans want the swamp drained and Hillary Clinton locked up. Folks, I cannot agree with this article more. This is amazing information. The only thing he's missing is the Clinton Foundation servers that Christopher Stevens also had responsibility of backing up and passing off. But this is an excellent article, and all of those little sections of the interview interspersed really make it an excellent read. Well, after all of this information, I think it's very obvious exactly why they have gone after General Flynn to the extent that they have. I want to thank everyone for joining me today. This has been a special presentation of the Red Pill News from Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector. Thank you once again. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.